Thank you so much, Uncle Choco.
Our final speaker for today is Professor Gary Foley, a proud Gumbaynggirr activist, actor, historian, curator and academic. He has been a leading Aboriginal activist for more than 50 years and was a key figure in the establishment of the Tent Embassy in Canberra. He and Uncle Jack shared many nights yarning at Jimmy Watson's on Lygon Street. Please welcome Professor Gary Foley.
On you, Jack. I knew you'd get a packed house for your last show, mate. My respects to Jack's family. My respects to the traditional owners. My respects to all the distinguished guests and Jeff Kennett. I knew Jack. I couldn't not do that. I knew Jack for 50 years. I first met him when I was a 21-year-old, smart aleck, radical, loudmouth from Sydney. And he changed my life. He changed my life by Bob Mazza, Rachel's dad, who I'd met a few years before, talked me into going and visiting a theatre show. I'd never set foot in a theatre in my life up to that point, but the show was the second production of the Nindathana Theatre, a show called Jack Charles is Up and Fighting. The Nindathana Theatre, has already been said here tonight, were the genuine pioneers of black theatre in this country. And it was that show, not only seeing theatre for the first time, but I was up the back of this theatre at the ANU, and I looked way up in the distance, and this tiny little man on stage, out of whom was coming this magnificent voice. And Jack, in one simple lesson that night, not only taught me the power of theatre, I also thought to myself, wow, this is a powerful medium for getting across the political message that we wanted to get across at the time. So it was a few months later that Bob and his family moved to Sydney, into the midst of the Black Power movement, where he set up the National Black Theatre. And it wasn't too difficult for Bob to con me into joining the cast of a show called Basically Black, because I still had firmly in my memory the performance that I'd saw Jack do on stage in Canberra that night. It blew me away. So Jack deluded me into thinking when I was 21 that maybe I could act. I think anybody who's seen any of my films or shows will know that I'm certainly no actor. But Jack and I Jack knew from then on that I was in awe of him. And later on, when he got into other things that distracted him, and when you're living tough and you're living hard, sometimes you got a thief. But Jack always said to me, I'm a crook with honour. I never steal from the poor. He always went south of the river to steal. So, nevertheless, I didn't know all this of his sojourn south, But then one day I picked up my newspaper, and lo and behold, Jack is the legendary Toorak cat burglar. You know, I thought, gee, that's a new feather in your cap, Jack. And might I say, the Toorak cat burglar who had magically and successfully eluded police for a long time. So Jack went away for a long time on that one. And then when he got out, I seemed to be on his dreaming track from wherever he was going to get his fix. My office at Melbourne Uni seemed to be on his daily dreaming track. Because he knew the esteem in which I held him. He knew that I was in awe of him. He knew that I loved him. And he knew that I was good for a bite every day. And so that went on for a while. He went in and out a few more times, and then one day my phone rang at work. I picked it up, and a bloke said, "My name's such and such. I represent Jack Charles." And I said, "Stop." And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Just tell me how many charges." And he said some remarkable number, like 70 or 80 or something like that. And I said to him, "Well, that's no good. Jack's going to go back for a long time this time." And the guy said, "Well, not necessarily." He said, "If we can muster up a bunch of good character witnesses, maybe we can get him a reduced term." And so I said, "OK." And we rounded up a bunch of people, some, reprobates, some actors, some poets, some theatre people, some, people with impressive names. I think Billy Hunter was one of them. And at that time he was a rising actor. And we go in, and I masqueraded as an expert in Aboriginal theatre. And we gave Jack a big wrap-up. But what we didn't know, and lucky for Jack, as sheer luck would have it, the magistrate sitting that day, this was her very first case. And after the sob story we laid on about Jack, she was almost in tears. She didn't want to send him to jail. But she felt she had to, and so he got some pathetic minimum sentence, 18 months or something. He was lucky. But from then on, I followed him, we kept in touch. And then when Emil brought out his film, we were all so pleased when Jack came out of jail that last time and he said, "I'm clean," And I knew from that moment on, if he was clean, he was going to kick ass from there on in. And knowing what a tough life he had had, he deserved those last couple of decades or so when, he went from strength to strength. He even inspired me a second time when I saw his one-man show. And again, I thought to myself, gee, I can do that. And indeed I tried. I think it was in here somewhere. I followed him with my one-man show. But I was never able to do what Jack could do on the stage. And I'm not talking about his acting now. I'm talking about his pottery, doing pottery sort of on the stage. And singing, I was never into singing or pottery. So my show was never as successful as Jack's. But he went on to tour the world with this show. And, those of us who knew him over a long period of time, and there are some of you here amongst us, wasn't it great? And wasn't it great that in the end, after his show called Jack Charles versus the Crown, how fantastic they give him a state funeral, folks. I just want to say a final thing. I want to do a shout out to all the brothers and sisters who are out there watching this from jail. Jack had a special place in his heart for you, mob. He was a man who believed in the downtrodden and the underdogs, the dispossessed, the less fortunate of society. And he always loved you, and your incarceration is a reminder for us today of the ongoing crimes that the settler colonial project is continuing to commit against our people. Thank you.